Once upon a time, in a beautiful country farm surrounded by rolling hills and vibrant green fields, there stood a spooky house that had been abandoned for many years. The house was tall and dark, with a creaky wooden porch and windows covered in dust. Its paint had peeled away, and the roof sagged under the weight of the years. The townsfolk often whispered about the strange sounds that came from the old place at night, and many children believed it to be haunted. Despite the stories, a curious boy named Oliver was drawn to the spooky house. Oliver was no ordinary child. He had a wild imagination and a heart full of adventure. Every day, he roamed the fields, climbed trees, and played with the animals on his family's farm. His friends would often dare each other to venture close to the spooky house, but no one ever did. They would shudder and giggle nervously at the thought of entering point one bright summer afternoon. Oliver decided that he could no longer resist the call of the old house. He had heard tales of hidden treasures, magic spells, and mysterious creatures lurking within its shadowy walls. With a tiny pine cone he had found that morning tucked safely in his pocket as a good luck charm, he marched toward the spooky house with determination. As he approached, the wind picked up, rustling the leaves of the nearby trees. Oliver felt a chill run down his spine, but he pushed through his fear. The path to the house was overgrown, and he had to step carefully to avoid the tall grass and wildflowers that threatened to trip him. As he reached the front steps, he paused, taking a deep breath before stepping onto the creaky porch. Just a quick peek, he whispered to himself, feeling a mix of excitement and trepidation. With a gentle push, the front door swung open, revealing a dark hallway that seemed to stretch endlessly before him. Dust motes danced in the sunlight that filtered through the cracked windows, and the air was thick with the smell of forgotten memories. As Oliver stepped inside, he heard a sudden whoosh, like a whisper carried on the wind. The magic wind. He remembered stories of how it could grant wishes or lead adventurers to hidden places. The wind seemed to swirl around him, lifting the tiny pine cone from his pocket and making it float in front of his eyes. Wow! He gasped, his eyes wide with wonder. The pine cone spun in the air, glowing faintly, as if it were alive. What's happening? Suddenly, the wind whisked the pine cone away, and without thinking, Oliver chased after it. The wind guided him deeper into the house, through dusty rooms filled with old furniture, cobwebs, and forgotten treasures. He passed a giant clock that ticked ominously, its hands frozen in time. Oliver could almost hear it whispering secrets of the past. The pinecone floated up a flight of stairs, and Oliver followed. Feeling braver with each step, the magic wind led him into a spacious attic, where sunlight streamed through a small window. The attic was filled with all sorts of odd things: dusty books, old toys, and a large, tattered map that hung on the wall. The map depicted the surrounding countryside, with marked trails and a big red X in the center. Could this be a treasure map? Oliver wondered aloud, his heart racing with excitement. The pinecone spun faster and landed right on the X, as if urging him to take a closer look. "Okay, tiny pinecone," Oliver said with a grin. "Let's find out what you're leading me to." He picked up the map, and as he did, he noticed a strange drawing of a giant beneath the red X. The giant looked friendly, with a wide smile and sparkling eyes. But what caught Oliver's attention was the small text below the drawing: "Follow the magic wind to find the giant of the forest, who guards the secret of the pinecone." Guardians and secrets? Oliver exclaimed, clenching the map tightly. This is going to be the best adventure ever. With the pinecone's gentle guidance and the map in hand, Oliver headed back down the stairs. As he stepped out of the spooky house, he felt the magic wind swirl around him again, lifting his spirits and filling him with courage. Outside, the sky was painted in shades of orange and pink as the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the fields. The wind continued to beckon him, leading Oliver toward the edge of the farm, where the lush forest began. With each step, he could hear the sounds of nature waking up: birds chirping, leaves rustling, and the distant croak of frogs. The deeper he ventured into the woods, the more the magic wind guided him. It whistled through the trees, twisting and turning, and Oliver followed closely behind. He felt a thrill of anticipation bubbling inside him, for he knew he was getting closer to the giant of the forest. After what felt like hours of walking, Oliver stumbled upon a clearing. In the center stood a massive tree, its trunk so wide that it would take several children holding hands to circle it. The tree had a door carved into it, and vines wrapped around its base. The wind blew gently, urging Oliver forward. With a deep breath, he knocked on the door. To his surprise, it swung open with a creak, revealing a warm, inviting interior. Inside, the tree was hollow, with soft glowing lights hanging from the branches. And there, sitting on a large wooden chair, was the giant. He was enormous, towering over Oliver, but his eyes twinkled with kindness. He had wild hair like the leaves of the forest, and a beard that seemed to be woven with flowers and twigs. "Welcome, young adventurer," he boomed in a friendly voice. "I am Glorem, the giant of the forest. What brings you to my home?" Oliver could hardly contain his excitement. "I found this magic pinecone, and it led me to you. I want to know the secret of the pinecone." Glorem chuckled, the sound rumbling like thunder. "Ah, the magic wind has chosen you, my boy. The pinecone holds great power, but only a brave heart can unlock its secrets. Tell me, what do you wish for?" Oliver thought long and hard. "I want to be brave enough to help others and to have adventures that will make my friends proud," he declared, his voice steady. The giant nodded thoughtfully. "A noble wish indeed. To achieve it, you must face 3 challenges. Each challenge will test your bravery, kindness, and cleverness. Succeed, and you shall learn the secret of the pinecone." Oliver's heart raced with excitement and a bit of nervousness. "What are the challenges?" Glorem stood up, his towering figure casting a long shadow over the room. "The first challenge lies in the shadowed grove. There, you must find the lost crystal of courage. Many have tried but have turned back in fear. The second challenge awaits at the River of Reflection, where you must help a troubled creature. Finally, the third challenge is at the Peak of Wisdom, where you will face your greatest fears." "I'm ready," Oliver exclaimed, determination shining in his eyes. "Very well," Glorem said, his voice deep and reassuring. "The magic wind will guide you. Trust in yourself and the pinecone, for it holds your spirit of adventure." With a wave of his hand, Glorem opened a door hidden behind the tree trunk. "Step through, and your first challenge will begin. Remember, I will be watching over you." Oliver stepped through the door and found himself in a magical glade. The trees were thick, and the air was filled with the sounds of chirping crickets and rustling leaves. The magic wind whistled through the branches, swirling around him like a friendly spirit, nudging him in the direction of the shadowed grove. As he walked, he felt the weight of the pinecone in his pocket, reassuring him that he was not alone. The grove was dark and foreboding, filled with shadows that seemed to stretch and dance. But Oliver took a deep breath and stepped forward. Suddenly, he heard a low growl coming from the depths of the grove. Fear gripped his heart for a moment, but he remembered Glorem's words. "I must be brave," he whispered, and with each step, he felt his courage growing. In the center of the grove stood a large, snarling wolf, its eyes gleaming with an unusual intensity. "Who dares to enter my domain?" the wolf growled, baring its sharp teeth. "I am Oliver," he declared, standing tall despite the fear bubbling inside him. "I seek the crystal of courage. Will you let me pass?" The wolf narrowed its eyes, assessing the boy before it. "Courage is not just a word, young one. To prove yourself, you must show me your true bravery. Can you face the darkness within?" "What do you mean?" Oliver asked, confused. The wolf gestured with its snout towards a dark thicket behind it. "In that darkness lies your fear. You must face it to obtain the crystal. Do you dare?" Oliver's heart raced, but he knew he had to try. "Yes, I dare," he proclaimed, pushing aside the doubt creeping into his mind. He stepped into the thicket, the shadows wrapping around him like a cloak inside. The darkness was thick, and Oliver could feel his heartbeat quicken. As he ventured deeper, memories of his childhood flooded back, times when he had felt scared or alone. He recalled the time he had to speak in front of his class and had frozen in fear, the time he had fallen from a tree and worried he might never climb again. Each memory tugged at his heart, but he remembered Glorum's words, "Trust in yourself." Taking a deep breath, he closed his eyes and thought of all the things he loved, his family, his friends, the adventures he longed to have. With a surge of confidence, he opened his eyes and shouted, "I am brave. I can face my fears." Suddenly, the shadows began to lift, revealing a glimmering crystal embedded in the ground. It radiated warmth and light, casting a beautiful glow throughout the thicket. Oliver reached down and picked up the crystal of courage. Feeling its energy flow through him, the wolf appeared beside him, its expression now softened. "You have faced your fears, young one. You possess true courage. Take the crystal. It is yours." With a smile of triumph, Oliver thanked the wolf and exited the grove. The magic wind swirled around him once more, lifting him gently as he made his way back to Glorum's tree. "I found it," Oliver exclaimed, holding the crystal aloft. "I found the crystal of courage." The giant's eyes sparkled with pride. "You have completed your first challenge. The second challenge awaits you at the River of Reflection. Remember, kindness and empathy will guide you there." With renewed determination, Oliver stepped through the door again and was instantly transported to the riverbank. The water glistened under the sun, its surface reflecting the clouds like a giant mirror. But as he approached the river, he heard soft cries, "Help me! Help me!" came the plea. Oliver looked around and spotted a small creature, a tiny sprite with delicate wings, trapped in a tangle of weeds. "Don't worry. I'm coming," Oliver shouted, rushing to the sprite's side. "What happened?" "I was trying to play in the water, but the weeds caught me. I can't get free," the sprite sobbed. Without hesitation, Oliver knelt beside the sprite and began to carefully untangle the weeds. "You're going to be okay," he said, his voice gentle and reassuring. "Just hold on." As he worked, he felt the magic wind blowing softly around him, almost guiding his hands. Finally, with one last tug, the sprite was free. "Thank you, thank you," the sprite squealed, flapping its wings in delight. "You're so kind. I owe you my freedom." Oliver smiled, feeling warmth in his heart. "I just did what anyone would do, but you did it with kindness and bravery. Because of you, the river can flow freely again." With a flick of its wrist, the sprite conjured a shimmering water lily from the river. This lily holds the power of reflection. It will grant you insight into your true self. Take it with you, dear friend. Oliver accepted the water lily, feeling its magic pulse through his fingers. "Thank you. I will cherish it. Now, go and complete your final challenge," the sprite urged. "The peak of wisdom awaits you." As Oliver set off, he felt the wind nudging him in the right direction, guiding him toward the towering mountain in the distance. With the crystal of courage in one pocket and the water lily in the other, he felt prepared for whatever lay ahead. The climb to the peak of wisdom was steep and challenging, but with every step, he felt stronger. He climbed over rocky outcrops and navigated narrow paths. The wind howled around him, but Oliver pushed through, determined to reach the top. Finally, he stood at the peak, breathless and filled with awe. The view was breathtaking. He could see the entire countryside stretched out before him. But before he could take it all in, a shadow loomed over him. Blocking the sun out from the clouds appeared a massive figure, an ominous dragon with gleaming scales and fiery eyes. "Who dares to challenge me?" it roared, sending tremors through the ground. "I am Oliver," he shouted, his voice steady despite the fear bubbling in his chest. "I seek the secret of the Pinecone." The dragon landed with a thud, its eyes narrowing. "Many have come before you, but none have faced their greatest fears. What makes you think you can succeed?" "I've faced the shadowed grove and the river of reflection," Oliver declared, clutching the crystal and the water lily. "I believe in myself and my journey." The dragon let out a deep, rumbling laugh. "Bravery is one thing, but true wisdom comes from knowing yourself. Are you prepared to face your greatest fears?" "Yes," Oliver replied, though doubt flickered in his heart. "Very well. Close your eyes and face the darkness of your mind," the dragon instructed, its voice low and commanding. With a deep breath, Oliver obeyed. Closing his eyes, instantly, he was transported into a vast, dark void. The silence was deafening, and Oliver felt his heart pounding in his chest suddenly. Shadows began to swirl around him, forming images of his fears. He saw himself failing in school, being left out by friends, and feeling lost in the world. Each shadow whispered words of doubt, trying to pull him into despair, but Oliver remembered the challenges he had overcome and the kindness he had shown. "These are just shadows," he murmured to himself. "They cannot define me." With newfound determination, he focused on the warmth of the crystal and the beauty of the water lily. "I am brave. I am kind. I can face anything." The shadows began to dissolve, and with each declaration, Oliver felt lighter, more confident. Finally, he opened his eyes to find himself back at the peak, the dragon watching him intently. "You have faced your fears and emerged stronger," the dragon said, its tone softened. "You possess the wisdom to navigate the challenges of life. For this, you have earned the secret of the Pinecone." With a wave of its claw, the dragon summoned a radiant light that enveloped Oliver. He felt a rush of energy, the magic wind swirling around him, lifting his spirit higher and higher. In that moment, he understood the secret of the Pinecone was not just about power or adventure. It was about believing in oneself, being kind to others, and facing challenges with courage. It was about the journey and the growth that came with it. As the light faded, Oliver found himself back at Glorum's tree. The giant smiled broadly, pride shining in his eyes. "You have done well, young adventurer. You have discovered the true essence of the magic wind and the Pinecone." "I did it," Oliver exclaimed, holding the crystal and the water lily close to his heart. "Thank you, Glorum, for believing in me." The giant knelt down, placing a gentle hand on Oliver's shoulder. "You are now ready to share your wisdom with others. The magic wind will always guide you, as long as you trust in yourself." With a wave of his hand, Glorum opened a door leading back to Oliver's farm. "Go, dear boy, and continue your adventures. You have much to offer the world." As Oliver stepped through the door, he felt the magic wind swirl around him one last time. He emerged back at his family's farm, the sun shining brightly above, the fields vibrant with life. From that day on, Oliver became a beacon of courage and kindness in his community. He shared tales of his adventures, inspiring others to face their fears and believe in themselves. With the magic wind always at his side, he knew that every day would bring new adventures, and the spirit of the tiny Pinecone would forever remind him of the lessons he had learned. And so, the spooky house became a place of legend, where the magic wind danced, and the story of Oliver, the brave adventurer, echoed through the ages.